Kia ora and welcome to Cassyapps. Today is my first ever podcast ever to exist of just me. I just usually piggyback on other people's ones, but I've wanted to do this for ages. And this morning I was doing a little meditation, and I know meditation sounds like a bit woo-woo, but a couple of years ago I was super depressed, had to try some different shit, so gave it a go. Anyways, 3 years ago I started meditating. It's like 3 minutes in silence. And I'm like, oh, that's good. And now it's like a little bit of a morning practice. But the worst thing about meditating is if something is like going on in your life that you're not happy with, like meditation's just going to be like, nyeh, 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 like a fucking alarm siren. And that's how I felt this morning. I was doing this meditation and it was like just really pushing me to start this podcast. I'm really bad at wanting everything to be perfect before I start it. Like I was like, well, I have to do a marketing plan and we have to have a logo and we have to have all of the accounts ready and all of this stuff. And at the end of it, I just need to fucking film myself. It's really not that deep. Like I think it's so easy to make something more complicated so you don't do it. And that's exactly what I've done with this. For 3 fucking years, I have put off making this podcast, but no longer. Here we go. Today's podcast is on starting stuff. So very on brand with me doing this. And I just wanted to talk about how scary it can be to start things and how I personally get over and just start doing it. I think the best thing when you think about starting something is to accept that it's not going to be perfect. And I think it's actually way better if you start something and it sucks, because then you've got so much room for improvement and you can always look back on that first thing and be like, oh yeah, that was really bad, but it got so much better. Whereas people that start off and they're incredible, where are they going? They've got such high expectations. And I think that's like something that I have been really trying to teach myself recently. And I think it's a really hard skill to teach yourself as an adult. If you didn't try lots of new things as a child, getting it stuck in as an adult and just trying new stuff can be really scary. And I think in the past like 5 years, I've massively changed as a person. I used to be early 20s. I was very like, wine was my personality. Being super loud was my personality. And whilst with the wine, making friends, talking shit to people in bars, like that was it. That's all I wanted. Like that made me happy. I loved it. And then all of a sudden I got to this point where I just like found it so boring drinking, and I found it so boring being around the same people, talking about the same stuff, going to the same bars. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to find new hobbies. And it was so isolating. Like it was just so weird. And I felt so weird being like this. But I was like, I want to make money. I want to enjoy life. I want to be way calmer. Because like I kind of had just realized that I had quite bad anxiety, because this is so funny. I was talking to my boyfriend at the time and I was like, yeah, well, you know, when you get in the car and you always think that you're going to crash. And he was like, no, I don't think that. And I was like, oh. Or if you go out on a night out and you think you're going to die. And he's like, no, I don't think that. And I'm like, oh. Wait, so you don't think the worst case scenario is going to happen to you all the time? And he goes, sometimes it crosses my mind, but I don't like dwell on that. And I was like, oh. So I realized that I had really bad anxiety through that conversation. And I was like, wait, so you just don't think about those things? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, fuck, that must be so much better. Like how much better does your brain probably feel compared to mine that's constantly like risk assessing for the worst situation. Anyways, I wanted to overcome that. I don't want to be an anxious person anymore. So I was like, oh fuck, okay, what do I do? And I started like, you know, you're watching all these TikToks of these like morning routines, and I'm like, oh, that looks nice. Like when you see somebody walking in a crispy morning, you're like, oh, that looks good. Like you just naturally, instinctually, obviously be like, oh, that would feel good on my body, wouldn't it? So then I start getting up earlier, going for walks, doing like little bits of stretching. It started off as stretching, then it became yoga in the morning. And then I was like, oh, this feels really good. Then I started meditating. And I had just been diagnosed with ADHD when this happened. And so meditating was such a game changer. I was like, whoa, my brain is actually going slow for the first time ever. This is insane. I had no idea I could do this. Like when you have ADHD, your brain's just going 1,000 miles an hour, and you're just kind of like, it feels like you're kind of trapped in this like world of brain being like, zzz. And I used to love smoking a little bit of the devil's lettuce. as you do when you have ADHD, because it slowed it down, like it slowed my brain down. And meditating was the only other thing that I'd ever experienced that kind of slowed that down. And I was like, yo, this is good and way cheaper than a FID. So maybe I will do this for a bit. Anyways, that is how I started doing my morning routine. And I think once you break the seal on starting something that you've never done before, you realize the kind of pattern that happens with it. You are really fucking nervous at the beginning before you do it. You come up with all these excuses not to do it. Then you do it. You get this hit of like dopamine or excitement or happiness or whatever it is from doing it that one time. And then you're like, oh, I could do that one more time and get that again. Then you do it again. And then you do it again. And then after a certain amount of time of doing this new thing that's good for you, you get the benefit of it. Like, obviously, we'll start real basic with the walks in the morning. I would feel good because my dog was walked and there was a job done. And I was up earlier, so I got more done. So I was like, cool. And then after like a week, my body's completely acclimatized to getting up earlier, being in the sunshine in the morning, being in the fresh early air. Like I'm like, oh, actually, this is really nice. All of a sudden, the rest of my body is like, yeah, this is good. I like this like morning air. So then it becomes way easier because like there's lots of things that are wanting us to do it. Like my body's wanting to do it. My brain's wanting to do it. My dog's wanting me to do it. My schedule's wanting me to do it. Like my day flows better if I'm up earlier and going for that walk. And so then it sticks. And I think so many people don't want to try new things because they've never gotten to that point of it where the new thing has rewarded them back. It's like people say it with the gym all the time. Like the first couple of times you don't really get any gains, like, is that the right word? I don't know. You don't get any real benefit from it. And then once you've been going a week or 2 weeks, or maybe it's like a month, I don't know, I'm not a gym person. But eventually you start seeing changes in your body, changes in your energy, your mental health and everything. And you're like, yo, I'm going to keep doing this. And that's the thing. Like when you start something new, you have to kind of hold on to the little bits that you get along the way, because it's not going to be you go to the gym once and you feel incredible. You go for a walk once, you feel incredible. You meditate once, you feel incredible. You probably will feel better. And if you're a naturally positive person, it will be way easier. Like people that naturally look for the positives in situations start new things way easier because they're going to naturally look for the good in something. So if they meditate and they just feel the tiniest bit better, if you're a positive person, you're going to be like, oh my God, that feels amazing. That's incredible. I remember when I started getting Nick to meditate, he is like chronically a glass half full person. Like you just, nothing's a big deal to Nick. Everything is positive. Everything is sunshine and rainbows. He meditated one time, came out, he's like, oh my God. I was like, incredible, right? He was just like, amazing. I feel weightless. And I'm like, I know, it's so good. And then he was hooked and he was meditating every day and now he loves it. It's like the best thing. Every time he meditates longer and longer, and it does so well for our business and our home life and everything. So naturally, if you're a more positive person, I feel like doing and starting new things is easier. But you can, even if you're not a positive person, you can adapt. You can adopt that mindset for when you start something new. You actually just have to be positive about it. Because at the end of the day, you're like, if you're starting a new thing that you already know is good for you. So if you're starting to eat better or meditate or go for walks or start a business or anything that you know will benefit you long-term in the future, you're not actually seeing if it's going to work after your first one because you're not going to reap the rewards of it first. Like your first day in business isn't going to pay off your mortgage. But your first day in business will it's a stepping stone to you paying off your mortgage, to you having financial freedom. So it's like you kind of want to go into any new thing with this positive attitude. And that can be hard. Like even with this podcast, this is like the first podcast. I haven't planned this at all. Don't even have my makeup done. Like I just like chucked some mascara on and I desperately wanted to be like, no, Nick, I need a nap. But he was like, not fucking having a bar of it. He's like, no, you've put this off for so long. You just have to do it. Like it just has to get started. And even sitting here, I'm like, oh, I should have had this more planned. This should have been better. I should have had this written or done. There's always going to be something that you could have done better and you can do it better next time. Like that's the point of starting something, is it's meant to get better. It's not meant to be the best when you start. And I think that's the hardest thing about it, is we like convinced that we have to be the best at everything. And that's because like social media only shows us the finished products. Like we only see usually really successful podcasts come up on our For You page. So we only see things that have had a lot of time and effort and like time to grow, and time for their audience to grow and them to grow as podcasters before we even see it. We don't see the first 5, 6, 10 episodes probably ever, because those aren't that good and they're not meant to be that good. And I think there's a lot of actual freedom in knowing that your first one's kind of meant to suck. Like it's kind of just meant to be getting it out there, and that's you doing the job. So I think that's my biggest advice when it comes to starting something new, is to go into it with, I know it's so lame, but you'll hear me say this a fucking million times, a positive attitude. Like it's the make or break. And I think I've always had like a bit of a positive attitude naturally, just because I'm a Libra. But I really started committing to like a positive attitude like in 2021 after I got arrested. I was like, okay, well, I got to just bank on myself here. And once I decided to do that, my whole life got better. And anytime I meet someone with a real bad attitude, they have a real shit life. So I know it's like, just start doing it. Just like start being a little bit more positive. And when you think of something bad that's going to happen, counter yourself and be like, but what about if it ends up amazing? Like, what about if this is the best thing that ever happened to me? But yeah, that is what I wanted to cover for my first podcast episode, is that starting things is fucking scary, but it's so worth it.